Welcome back, everyone, to another new episode of Let's Talk Comics, the first episode of 2026. We've made it to a new year. This is the official Image Comics podcast. I am your host, Jim Viscardi, and on this show, we go one-on-one with your favorite creators in the business to find out how they got in, why they got in, what they're still doing in comics, and what they've got coming up. If you have not listened to the last episode of 2025, go check it out, because 2026 is going to be a great year, and we're kicking this one off in style. I can't wait. First, let's get some business out of the way. If you just found this show, congratulations. You found another great comic book podcast for you to listen to. This is a show that the goal is really to just kind of have real conversations with creators about their work, their process, the long road sometimes it can take to making a comic. And if you like what we do here, all I ask is for a little bit of support on your end. Leave a rating for the show, whether it's on iTunes or Spotify or wherever else. Subscribe to the show. And if you're listening to it right now, take a screenshot of your phone, share it on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and say, hey, you guys should check out this show. Great episode this week, because it is a good one. It is a great episode this week. Today's guest is Brett Bean. You may know Brett's work from I Hate Fairyland, and he's got a new ongoing series that kicks off in February called Dork. And Dork is this is a fun book. It is a fantasy. It's a fantasy epic, really, that's got violence, humor, absurdity. But it's got a lot of heart. I think the conversation I had with Brett today is a lot of fun, because Brett's walked many paths to get to the one that he wanted, which is to make comics. And so this book really does feel like a culmination of everything he's learned along the way. And like I said, if you love his work and kind of the violence and stuff he did on I Hate Fairyland, you'll love it in this. Those books got a very Twig feel. It's Lord of the Rings. If it were more violent, it's got D&D elements to it. It's a book you're going to have to check out. And this is a book that's going to show up on a lot of lists at the end of the year. So, you know the whole rigmarole. We're going to talk about Brett's journey. We're going to talk about the reality of making comics, how ORC got its start, and what plans he's got for the book coming up. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's talk comics. Brett, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jim.
We have to. I start all the shows the same way, and so no different in the new year. Was comics always the goal for you, or is there an alternate Brett Bean who is a mechanic or something?
Comics. So once, since I was a kid, I wanted to be a comic book artist. Like, I think by the time I got to high school, there were other artists that were better, and so I didn't feel like I could be a comic book artist, and I got talked out of it from parents and family members saying this is a bad idea, don't do it. And I believed all of them. So I went and did all the things that everybody else wanted to do. So I got into video games, which got me into TV shows, which got me into movies. And I have found that I have disassembled all of those things that everybody else wanted me to do, and, kind of successfully did, and went, this does not make me happy at all. And so I found my way backwards to what I wanted to do in the first place, which was drawing and creating comic books. That's what I used to do in my free time when I was a kid, and I found my way back to it. So now I'm never gonna leave. I don't care. I actually love comics, man. So I took a pay cut to do comics. Right, I had made it. I had finally made it where everybody in all these other avenues, and I asked my wife, I was like, can I restart my career and start over and make less money? And she said, yeah. And that was kind of, when you have the support system, that makes it a lot easier to kind of do. So hey, I love it.
Right. So, but being an artist, basically, I mean, like, you were able to do that, right? So again, you've worked in a number of other fields. getting to be an artist. I know you worked in video games and animation a bit. What I guess like for you though, in like the early parts of your career doing that stuff, right? Like
Mhm.
what were so you're getting to do art, but was the process like, like when you find out how the sausage is made, like does that um what was that like for you? And did you find maybe like getting your start there, like were there any hurdles and stuff that you had to overcome on that?
Like getting from transitioning from production and animation to doing comics.
No. Like just getting into
Just,
production and animation to start. Yeah.
oh man. So yeah, I think there's a certain, those early days are, it's the same thing that I had to do with comics, right? You kind of like, what I try to tell people is like, you get your foot in the door so you can kick it down. So you have to figure out where you can slip your foot in. And so you can start to like prove to other people and prove to yourself that you're capable of something more than just, another body in the, a seat in the cog in the wheel. But that's like studio life, right? So I learned really early on, it's much more about teamwork, camaraderie, how you're going to present yourself. So the same things that I now use in comics, I had to learn all that stuff too. And all that, I had to make every single deadline. Getting it done on time is more important than making it like exactly the way you want it, how you want it, when you want it. So you become deadline oriented, become production oriented. And I think that has really worked for comics. Also, my character design stuff. I was a character designer. I've taught in schools and colleges for that too. So each one of those things that you do, whenever somebody said, "Hey, we need somebody to do special effects," I'd raise my hand and say, like in my mind, going, "You're willing to pay me to learn how to do this, and I don't know what I'm doing." So of course I'm going to raise my hand and say, "Give me the opportunity. Let me figure it out." So each one of those things, I call it falling forward. And so each one of those things kind of, one, you get better at your craft, but two, you rely and trust yourself that you will catch yourself when you fall on purpose.
Mm.
And that has really helped me out. So when I started back in comics and had to start over my career and go, I'm a newborn giraffe. I don't know any of this stuff. I'm going to go shoot my ego on purpose and fall forward. I will figure it out, but I will have to swallow that sort of like, I've made it. I'm done now. I'm going to, you're restarting all that kind of stuff again. But each path has led me to the next one. So that's, everything is a building block, right? So
Was there anything um unexpected about the comics production process as you were kind of starting to get into it? I mean, like obviously, I think everyone understands the bare bones of it, right?
yeah.
There's a writer, there's a script, you pencil, ink, color, etc. But there's so much more that goes into all of that. There's some surprises for you along the way?
So much more. And surprises are coming each day, right? So there's so much more involved. There's so many things that you're juggling and spinning at the same time. So when I was art directing, it feels very much like that. Like you have the product that you're making, which is that base group that you talk about, right? You've got the editor, the writer, the colorist, inker, letterer, all that kind of stuff. So you've got those plates, but then you're trying to build out 5 issues beforehand where you're getting solicits, which is going to the retail shops and getting those people involved to say, hey, I hope you're going to like issue 5. I haven't really wrote it, but here's the synopsis that I have for it because I'm still building up 3 and 4. And so you're spinning a lot more plates at the same time as you're doing all these things. And then you're doing podcasts and then you're trying to get people invested in this way and that way. So there's all these other components that are happening at the same time as you're making the product on a regular basis compared to a film where all that stuff happens afterwards, right? You do all that heavy lifting and then it's done. And then you go through all that stuff afterwards to say, great, now everybody can get on board and buy it because your work is done, right? But it's not, it's this continual marathon that doesn't end. There's no end goal to it. So you're always sort of getting on it and you have to find that energy that makes it interesting to do. And it's awesome. And you see that other people like yourself are putting energy into you. So you have to channel that back saying, great, if you're going to spend your time and energy on me, I'm going to give it back to you. So it's finding all that balance. But that has been the craziest thing compared to when I work like on a project or a Muppet design. I just sit down and I do my part and I turn it in and I say, great, then you get paid and you move on. And then what ends up showing up on like the Naked Gun movie, you're like, oh, that's what ended up on the scene. Oh, okay. I did the snowman for the Naked Gun movie, right? The new one. I did the snowman. I did the design of that. But you just turn it in and you go, okay, who knows what's going to happen. And then, because that scene could be cut. There's so many things that happen through the whole Hollywood pipeline that you don't get precious with anything. And compared to this, where you can feel precious towards these things because like the creators, they're there. This is like the closest vision to actuality from the creative team that you can make, I think. Is comics is still it to me. It's a 1-to-1 ratio.
So then how did you and Scotty connect to inevitably start working on Fairyland?
So honestly, the first time I met Scotty, he like Instagram was kind of new, so I didn't know what he looked like. He wasn't really putting his face out there. So the first time he came by and he just kind of said hello, bought one of my art of books, and then walked away. Like I didn't know. This is all like afterwards, right? It's all afterwards that you learn this information.
Scotty is a very like he's a tall guy, right? It's
Yeah,
too.
yeah. He's a big dude. Like I'm 6'2". Like I think we were long lost brothers. I think when I look at the two of us, I go like we could have been brothers on this one. We could have, so there's a lot of similarities between us. And we're same age range, so we all like all the same stuff. But he didn't really introduce himself. And at that time, Scotty wasn't like a household name like he is now. So he like I'm trying to extrapolate back then, and I don't know if I was in that circle to say like, oh, you're this up and coming comic book artist, and because Fairyland wasn't out yet. I think it was in the middle of Oz at the same time. And he bought my book, but he came back later that day. He's like, hey, I've got this book working out. Do you want to do a pinup in it? I was like, oh, sure, that's cool. Send me an email. So he sends me the first issue of I Hate Fairyland way back in the day. And he's like, would you be the first pinup art? Would you do a pinup? And so I send it to him. Later on, after I send it to him, he's like, great, you're in. So if you go back to the first issue of I Hate Fairyland, I'm the pinup in there. And he told me when he called me years for doing I Hate Fairyland, he said, do you know back then when I gave you that pinup job, I knew as soon as you turned it in, if I ever stop drawing I Hate Fairyland, Brett's gonna do it. So he knew before I knew any of that, where I was just like, I'm helping a friend out, another peer, yay. And then to move on with your life because everything happens, right? And then years later, it ends up like, hey, let's work together. And before that, he asked me to do one issue of Rocket and Groot with him. And I think that was the first sort of beginning to see like, well, how do we work together? Is Brett a nice guy? Is Brett not a nice guy? There's all these things that kind of have to work out, like how do we work together? And so it kind of just happened real naturally. And then we just kept flowing. It was really easy to work with him. And there's not a lot of direction back and forth because we think alike. So it just got easier and easier as we went.
So were you kind of tabling, like back when you were tabling then, was that kind of after you had decided I want to do a comics career, or was that kind of before, in between? Like what was the impetus to do that?
In between, I had a San Diego Comic Con for years, and as you know, like if you give up your spot, you never get it back, sort of a thing. So I would just have art books, but I actually got a lot of animation and art direction and character design work through having that booth. So I never gave it up because it still worked within what I was doing. Always knowing that, but by then I had already chosen my career, so I didn't feel like I was getting into comics. I felt like it had that boat had sailed. I had chosen my career. This is where I'm stuck, right? I'm not stuck. Everybody wants these jobs, but I felt like, okay, this is what I chose. This is okay. I've got a good career. We're going to stick with it. Um, and then I did a Kickstarter for myself, and I did my own comic as a sort of a proof of concept to myself. And as I made it, I was so enthralled doing it and all the problem solving that comes involved with special effects, writing, colors, everything, and camera angle, all the camera shots, everything. I was like, I love all of it because everything I used in all of TV and film, video game is in a comic. So I loved all of it, and it felt like mine. So it was even like, woohoo, this is it, the Mecca. And so once I did that Kickstarter, I that's where it kicked in. And then eventually Scotty did call and I was like, yeah, let's do it and jump ship and try this thing out. Yeah, yeah.
You mentioned that a lot of the um, back and forth between you and uh, Scotty was you guys were very much on the same wavelength. So I guess what were some of those early working together days kind of like? Because now you're working with someone else's script, you're working off something else, which is kind of some of the stuff that you've done before, but now in doing it in comics, was there like what trepidation did you kind of have to shake off that inevitably felt like, okay, yeah, no, we're off to the races here?
um, well, I think the first trepidation is something that's already out that somebody has already put their stamp on it, and a really big stamp and a really big shadow is Scotty Young, right? He obviously already has something already built up. He's already gotten all these issues with I Hate Fairyland, so you're not coming in brand new, right? Um, and so that was probably the biggest intimidation is they're like, oh, this big thing, how do I make my mark? How do I do it my way, but at the same time, it fits within his way. So it continues what he's doing. So it's this balancing act. It's just like if you get on a TV show or anything else, you go, that's the problem. How do I solve it to where I'm satisfied and they're satisfied? And the audience is satisfied because they are all like, how dare you, Scott, prove to us that you can take this job from Scotty. And why isn't Scotty doing it? And so that's the biggest hurdle, right? Is to get them on board and say, like, this is what I can do. This is what I have. And you can see I settle in after the issues. Like first issue, I'm one way, and then I slowly start to trust myself and go, no, I just got to be me. And to Scotty's credit, he also kind of promotes that, where he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just do your thing. Don't don't do my thing. Do it your way. And then that trust sort of just shows up to where gags I can write into the little layouts and stuff he'll use and vice versa. So he's just like it plays back and forth off of each other as you both create on the same page, even though you're not doing it at the same time. You get the script and then you send the pages in, and then he'll rework the script to kind of match some of those jokes and back and forth. So
That's awesome. So when did the idea for Dork start to percolate?
the idea for Dork started when I decided I wanted to do comics. I started to sort of build out. I did a kids book series with Penguin Random House, and that was going to be my next pitch, was to do it in graphic novel form, and pitch it to them. And in the middle of making that is when Scotty contacted me and asked me to do I Hate Fairyland. And then my brain went, I should go do that. I should prove that out. I'd rather it be a comic, and I'd much rather it be at Image, to tell you the truth. All that stuff, because I had my foot in that door. Let's see if we can do it this way. But ooh, there's a crack in this door over here. That's the door I want to be in. Let's get my foot in there, you know. And so I told Scotty, I said like, hey, I'm gonna use you like you're using me, right? You're like this is gonna be a happy a symbiotic relationship, but I was like, one day I'm gonna board past this and use what we do together to do my own creator owned. So he kind of knew it since the get go, and with his blessing years later, I just didn't think it was going to be 20 issues in. I thought he'd get tired. I thought he'd get tired of me at like issue 5 and go, "Oh, I'm moving on. This guy, whatever." And go, "Great, I got my 5 issues in. I got to go try to figure out my thing." And we just went for 20, and then I finally had to say something like, I know we can keep going, but if I don't try and fail at this thing that I have in my head, I'll always have too many what ifs, compared to like the safe bet. So, and he also was just very like, I get it. That's exactly what I did. Go and do your thing. Right. So it all worked out for everybody involved, but that's kind of how that layered approach went. So yeah, I had the idea before. It was just going to be in a different form. Yeah.
So does the story change at all for you, given how you were initially going to do it to where we are today, given kind of the stuff that maybe you learned along the way?
For sure. So especially because I had a literary agent and I had the creative directors at these book places, and all their feedback wanted to basically take all the essence of what I thought was important in the story away. And I was like, ew, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. So I was like, well, why don't I just pitch you a different idea? And what do you mean? And I just threw something out. And actually, that became another book series for me. Because I was just telling him, it was like, you're not looking, you don't like my idea. You're trying to change my idea into fitting into a pinhole of what you want. And so I learned that this is precious to me, so it has to be my way. And then I threw out this other idea, and then that became something else, which is crazy that that did. Um, and so it sat there, and so I have all these ideas that stay in the story. I've got this big document, and of course, things get massaged as you write it out, but so many of these important stories and the big beats, all the big beats are still there that I have in place. Because a lot of things have to do with real world situations that I've lived through and stuff. And I've turned them into these sort of like strange versions of them for this character to kind of go through. But all that stuff sort of like trickles down to where I'm like, oh no, this is always what it was going to be. How do I do it to where it's not linked to me or linked to realism? Because I like escapism. I like fantasy and escapism. But they always say write what you know. And so you can base it down to those basic nuggets of what humans can go through and go, great, let me put it in this fantastical setting, you know? So, yeah.
Before we get too far down the
Yeah.
dark road, pitch the book. What is the book about?
Oh, what is the book about? So my 30 second
Super deeply personal. And
oh, right, super deeply personal. Right, right. So the book is like if you ever thought Lord of the Rings could be funnier, or that Conan could use more silliness, this should fit in there. Where it has this epic feel to it. There's violence, there's craziness to it, but it's a story about one character who is prophesied to bring about the end of the world from both these sides, the light and the dark. And how do you navigate these two extremes in a very silly situation? And that's who he is, and that's what the story is really about, is how do you get out of a prophecy and be your own person when you're supposed to destroy everything.
in you mentioned that there's there's violence in the book, and
Mhm.
it's funny because, like, I mean, clearly you did a fair amount of violence in Fairyland, uh but but it's one of those things, like, I've had Otley on the show, and I've had a number of of ours who are known for violence that they do in their books, but like, I'm always so interested in how, or like, what each creator's approach is to balancing that and making sure that the book is not necessarily just about violence, but violence is, an additive way to further the story. And so, like, for you,
Oh, for sure.
what is that like? How do you walk that tightrope?
So for me, the violence has to have meaning behind it. There has to be justification to the violent scene. I don't. It's the same way of like horror movies. If I just watch, the crazy stuff that happens everywhere, I go like, oh, this is not. But I can watch a scary movie, or I can watch that horror tension where you're like, oh, there's a reason for it to be here and now, right? So it's violence has to be on purpose for me. In a violent world that this is in, and also it's sort of peeling back a little bit of that. Look at both of these sides that vehemently hate each other, the light and the dark, right? So you've got the light half and the dark half. You've got orcs and you've got goblins, you've got all this kind of stuff, and then you have elves and dwarves and stuff like that, and they hate each other. And it's sort of shining a light on just violence for violence sake, and why does everything have to be this way when there's a lot more commonality between these two sides. And that's what Dork ultimately wants to understand. As somebody who feels like an outsider, and you see this, and you go, well, why can't elves and goblins get along? Like, you know, even when you watch Lord of the Rings, you can watch any of these things, right? Dungeons and Dragons, you go, oh, we kind of make it happen this way, but why does it have to be this way? And so I find that a very interesting way to use violence in not a like a really make you think, but there's more like a global thing of like, oh yeah, there are more ways to see this world than just through a violent lens, or just through a sexual lens, or just through this, where everything is like this gray space. And so I try to use violence to, one, also be funny too, because the book uses violence in that funny way, in the same way that I think Gert and I Hate Fairyland is, where it's so over the top silly that it becomes just like a character unto itself, where it's not just like the bloody evil violence and heads ripping off and all that kind of stuff. It's a character within itself, that there's a silliness to the violence. And I like to walk that tightrope, where I find that stuff interesting. Not Cartoon Network, but Adult Swim. Rick and Morty, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh yeah, you can bite that person in half. That's funny and it's violent, but at the same time, you've handled it in a way that kind of sits in the middle there. And I love that, like that thing. So
Uh, Tell me a little bit about the shield with the eyeball.
I tell you, so that is a character that will have has an entire backstory. So I can't reveal too much, but I love Shield. Shield, that's I can't tell you. That's the hardest one, Jim, because there's so much things that are tied up within certain character development that I'm like, I don't know how to even talk it. I needed I needed one somebody a sidekick that was just as strong as a main character, because what I like about the stories I enjoy reading is when you have a main character that I enjoy, but the side characters are just as strong motivationally and visually, that I want to know what happens to all of them, not the throwaway ones, right? I like the stories where like, oh, I'm invested in you and you and you know. So the shield is like, I wanted it to be a part of him, so I wanted it on him, but I also wanted it to be the opposite of him. And the opposite of him is violence. If he's trying to understand violence, I want the opposite of him to be violence. But I wanted the opposite of violence, which is a defensive weapon. So I picked shield. I picked the most violent one to be a defensive weapon, because that would be so frustrating if I was stuck as a very violent thing, and I was stuck in this cutie little object. Like originally I had it was going to be a bow and arrow, and it was going to be a girl in his hand, and she didn't want to do the violence. And so every time he would try to pull the bow and arrow back, she'd move her butt and make his arrows like shoot off target. But then I was like, oh, that's funny, and that could be in an issue, but it's not a repetitious thing that you can keep playing off of. But a personality trait of like, I just want to be violent and I'm stuck in this shield body. I'm going to find a way no matter what. I'm going to kill, kill, kill. That cracked me up, and so that's why it became a shield.
It's funny. So having read the first couple of issues, obviously we're not going to do spoilers, but it's he is an outlet for you for the comedy, being so so bloodthirsty and whatever, and like and serious in a way that you get to kind of do comedy through this thing. Um, Obviously intentional, but are there things that maybe you have learned about both Shield and Dork that maybe you didn't realize you knew about them now that you've started working on the book?
Yes, there's definitely some character traits. I didn't know that Dork is very close to who I am. Um, and my wife had to point that out. after she read the first 4 issues, she's like, you know, Dork is basically you in your 20s, right? I was like, What?" And she's like, "Yeah, you're going backwards, and you're like you're setting up situations for him to feel not the same situation, but to feel the way you did at 20. You're putting him in a fantastical, crazy spot, but what's coming out of his mouth is your frustration or your things the way that you used to feel." And I'm like, holy crap, I didn't realize that I had written more about myself into that dialogue. And like the nth degree version. Like I wanted to be a stand-up comic for a long time. So a lot of my stuff is funny on that side. So that's what I want to do improv. That's what I wanted to be. I was going to come to Hollywood and be an improv artist and all that kind of stuff. Even took classes, did stand up. It was crazy. It was really fun. Oh yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, yeah. So I write funny jokes and dialogue all the time. I've got an ongoing list, and I'll walk around and I'll just laugh to myself. And Julie's like, "Did another one, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sorry." And I'll write it down. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But I just have this giant list, and then I try to fit them in. And I think that's how Dorcas sounded more like me, is because I make these jokes to make myself laugh, and they end up being in my scripts because I'll go back and like, oh, that was a good line that one time, and then I work it into it, so he ends up sounding like me because of all these little quips and like being frustrated with Shield and like certain way that they talk to each other. So yeah, and also the Shield is also part of me too, because boy, do I have a side where I just want everybody to go away and leave me alone.
I want to talk a little bit about the other parts of the creative team on this. You're working with Jean-Francois Belliou again, who called you there. What is he? Why was he important? An important piece for this in setting kind of the tone for the book.
Well, he's brilliant. He's really a great. I mean, he's awesome to work with. Um, he's deadline oriented. He does a great job in the time that he's given, and he's a nice guy. And I think that when you put all that stuff together, those are the people you want to keep around, right? Those are the people you want to make happy and keep around. So I was thrilled when he had the time to hop on board. And he's just he's a great guy, and we already had a working relationship, so it was an easy sort of like, let's just keep on trucking, let's keep on rolling. We already have each other's information and what's going to be, how our folder structure, everything kind of just worked because we were already there. Everything kind of worked. And our back and forth was already established between I Hate Fairyland when I said, "Oh, could you change this color? Oh, could you do this?" Da, 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 da. And to be honest, I actually did a couple tests with other colorists. And I just kept coming back to Jean going like, I think for me to feel comfortable, especially on my first project, I wanted the team that I knew at first before I branched out. And so it wasn't just that, because I wouldn't have done that had I not already believed in his ability 100%. So he's awesome, and he's into music too. I don't know if anybody knows that. He really likes music. He and Nate, they both love music, and I love music, so we kind of talk about that kind of stuff once in a while too.
So, but with you being kind of in the captain's chair, right, in writing and all that, so are you? How collaborative is the work with Jean-Francois in the sense of like making sure that the tone is right, because there's between some of the big action and some of the humor and then the more serious moments, is that you kind of helping direct that, or are you letting him do his thing based off what you've got and kind of in the situation in the script?
So I think it's both. I think a good leader leads, but also gives space for other creatives to do their thing. So what I tried to set up was, I kind of gave him a first package when I said, like, let's do the first 10 pages. And I gave him some things like, think Don Bluth backgrounds. Let's go with like Secret of Nim. Let's break it down this way, a little bit harder edges, but Secret of Nim background, sort of a feel to it. More realistic colors, less of the bright, crazy stuff of I Hate Fairyland, more of the desaturated, more realistic medieval colors, mixed with that crazy amount of like when they go into berserk mode or when they go into the action modes, that's where we do the pops. That's where we like really pop out certain colors and make it really bright and colorful. So there's like a difference between the two. Um, and I gave those directions and then very specifically when Dork does, I mean, I don't know if it's spoiler, but when he does lose control, when he does kind of get out of that element and he does kind of lose himself of who he is, then I was very stark. I was like, I just want it red, black, and white. I want that to read visually as something is very different happening right now. So all those scenes, those are beats out through the entire arc is those color notes. And everything beyond that, that's just Jean doing his amazing ability thing. But those were the specific notes I did to say like these are important. And then the light and the dark, the fact that there are two factions, I kind of told him right off the bat. I said this is going to be heavy lifting because I want to feel a difference between these two groups of characters that he sits in the middle of. So light and dark, so there'll be darker colors, more saturated this way, more light colors, more desaturated, and more tonal range this way. And he did beautifully with it. So it worked.
Nice. Uh, Talk to me about what Nate brings. I mean, obviously, again, someone you've worked with before, but I mean, Nate's one of the greats. I love his stuff as far as lettering goes. But was there, for something like this being with a fantasy setting and things like that, like there's potential, there's opportunity to make things look a little bit different and whatever. So, like, talk to me about what it was like, kind of coming up with the language and how you wanted lettering and stuff. Well, yeah.
And Nate is a professional's professional. So I think he's at the top of the game and I think he's brilliant. And he actually does some heavy lifting helping me figure out the scripts because right now I'm the editor it's myself as well, which was suggested by everybody from people at Tiny Onion, everybody. They're like, hey, before you start trying to like bog all that stuff down. Let's see if you can make it an actual comic first, and then you can hire people once you know that it's going to be okay, right? Like don't shoot yourself in the foot and then have to make up so much money by paying out so much money. So it was I got really good stuff from everybody. So I took all that information. And so, but Nate's done a lot of extra heavy lifting and helping. And I just asked him, it's like, hey, Nate, I want to work with you because I trust you and you have a good eye for this stuff. So this is what I want to do. And he has gone above and beyond for everything. So he's exactly the kind of person that you want on your team. But plus, like those logos and stuff, I said I loved the brokenness of that old Hulk logo, when he's busting through it and it's cracked and all kind of broken. And I gave him that. And I said, and the cool Conan with the sword through, like not that, but that sort of like hard edge, blend those two. And the guy comes back with like a hand lettered dork sign. And I'm like, this is it. You did it. You did it on the first freaking try. So, he does that. And then week after week, he helps out with all of the variants and everything. And he's just a solid dude, but he knows what he's doing. And we're actually doing something different with, I don't know if you've noticed, but the balloons, they don't have an end cap. They don't have a point. See, we were worried because he's like, I've always wanted to try this and I've never done it. And nobody said yes. What do you think? So he pitched that to me. And I was like, you know what? I'm asking you to jump in with me. I should jump in with you. This is something you want to try. Let's go for it. So if you go back and look, none of the balloons have points at the end. Yeah, and they're not close ended. And he just wanted to try it. And I said, then our book is the way to try it. Let's do it. So I think it works. I was a little scared at first going, well, it's different. But I'm like, be different. Who cares? Everything's fall forward. Let's go find out. So
There you go.
yeah.
We have to talk about some of the variants on this book because you kind of
Oh yeah.
out with those. Man, it is a murderer's row of folks coming in doing some big murder on the book. What is that like? How? I mean, I have to imagine that feels phenomenal getting to see a bunch of other folks just.
Oh, see, I actually have goosebumps thinking about this. I am such a huge fan.
Like we've got Jorge Corona, we've got Ryan Otley, we have Jason Howard. There's a America cover that
Andolfo, yeah, Ryan Stegman, Riley Rosmo, yeah, Jason Howard. It's it's bonkers that I would say only a year ago, I didn't know any of these people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I didn't know any of these people. So I I am one of those people that I want to help promote, lift up, and be a part of their world when they're good people. And I'm so excited that I get to call them friends as well as peers. And that's a weird thing because I've collected their work. I am actually just naturally fans, and I never thought that I would be not only a fan but a peer and a friend. Like to have these people on my phone. Like the first time Ryan texts me, and you're like, "This is weird. This is like the same thing." Like for me, it's like when Brian Henson from from Jim Henson's Creature Shop calls you up, and you're like, you're like, you gotta like keep your professional, but at the same time, you're like, I love your stuff. I'm a nerd for all these things, and so it's a dream. It really is a dream come true. Yeah, it's awesome.
Anytime I get a call from Todd, right? Like Todd.
Right. Oh man. See, and I haven't gotten one, but I've gotten to text. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I one day it'll happen. But like even like Eric Larson, like I flat out texted him saying like, "Hey, I know you don't know me, but I need your help getting a hold of the people at Image," and he gracefully did. And it's such a huge moment to go like, this is somebody I've looked up to. I've read his comics. He is a huge influence. And then here he is helping me. So it's so amazing to your earlier point that like in comics, I just see so many people that are helpful and love the medium and are truly want to help other people love it as well. Compared to a lot of Hollywood and stuff where it's transactional friendships, transactional kind of relationships. Um, Comics, there's just a bunch of people who love it and want like if you're in it and you want to put in the energy, they'll put the energy in. So it's been awesome that all of these variants and all these people have joined me, and I've gone to each one of them, and they're all on my bucket lists. They're all on my original list of like these are the people I want one day. The what ifs. What if this happened? What if this happened? What if this lined up?
In the first three.
Yeah. I was like, crap, but I actually have more. They have to turn in their stuff, but I have more other names. And then hopefully that will trigger more. Hopefully, if the book does well, I can at least some of the people that are really busy go, I know you're busy, but look at all these other people. Don't you want in on this? Don't you have some FOMO? Don't you get some FOMO? Don't you want to be in on this? And I can entice them that way. But the people that I have, and they did a great, phenomenal job. All the covers are awesome. They're so good. So yeah.
Before I let you go,
Yeah.
what someone picks up Dork, gets to the end, what are you hoping they take away from it?
I hope they take away that the universe is rich. I I have a plan and I'm going to go somewhere with it, and that you believe in the characters. Like to me it's a character story, not a plot story. So what I hope is that there's enough investment that they go, "Oh, I want to know what happens to this character and what they do in their world." That's what I hope, because you want the person to resonate. You want the character that you're writing to resonate with people. And they'll go on any adventure. It's the same way I am with my comics that I read. If I'm invested in the character, I'll read wherever that character goes. Set me up. I'll knock them down, you know? So that's what I'm hoping to other people. If I put out the same work, that people will go, I'm invested. I want to see what happens. So I have a plan.
There you go. No better way to end there. Dork #1 launches February 4th. If you haven't already gone to your retailer and tell them that you need at least 3 copies of the book, go do so now. Brett, thank you again, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
For all you listening, we'll catch you next time. Well, there you have it. Half dwarf, half orc, all dork. What a killer tagline. Dork launches February 4th, 2026 from Image Comics. Make sure you tell your retailer you want a copy, maybe 2. There's great covers on the book. Huge thanks to Brett for helping us kick off the year, coming in to tell us all about the book and what it took for him to get to this point. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you're following Let's Talk Comics wherever you listen. Leave a rating or review wherever you listen. And like I said, share the episode with a friend. Maybe you're in a Discord about comics. Maybe you're on Reddit. Say, hey, I'm listening to this new podcast. You should check it out. I appreciate all of that. We got a great year full of great conversations ahead. And so, again, like I always say, as long as you keep reading comics, we will keep talking about them. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.